Okay, so trimming a bowl, you can use these nice foam bats, right? Which help to lock it down. Another way is to just put it on a bat and lock it down with little coils of clay. These bats work really well for lower, flatter things. So I'm gonna use those concentric circles to center it. And the first thing I wanna do is just level out the bottom of my piece. And you really want to make sure too that your clay is at this leather hard stage. Whoop. You'll notice that I'm putting my hand gently on it to kind of keep it from, to kind of push it down onto the foam so it's got a better connection. I personally always like to do the outside or the silhouette of the pot first and then determine the inner foot and what that looks like. So when you're trimming the outside of a bowl in particular, you always want to be thinking about that inner curvature and how the outside curve is matching the inside curve so your walls are all the same thickness. And so there's continuity between the aesthetics of the inside versus the outside. So this bowl has some really kind of straight walls. So I kind of want my foot to match that straightness. And I really like this angle, how it's going like this, and I kind of want to mimic that and have that foot kind of jutting out. Like this. Okay, so now I'm getting to the point where the outer shape is pretty close to what I want. Could be a little more at an angle. So I'm going to draw kind of the general thickness of the foot. And I always make that thickness, the initial thickness, a little bit thicker than I actually want it in case something goes wrong, right? And then I'm just going to take my carving tool and carefully carve out the center. My wheel speed is like, probably shouldn't be going any faster than half. Just in case something goes awry. So when I get the foot pretty close to what I want, especially with a clay like our B-Mix or B-Mix with Grog, or the Reclaim of the B-Mix that has a bit of grit in it, you're gonna see these grit lines, which some of you may not like. So all you need to do is come in with your finger, a piece of plastic, or your rubber rib and compress those grit lines away. I wouldn't use a sponge because you're going to be adding moisture to the pot, which can weaken it. And then you're also just bringing that grog to the surface. I'm also going to soften this outer edge because I know just through using pots, anything with a really sharp edge on the foot has a tendency to get chipped in use. Aesthetically, it's always really pleasing, but functionally can be problematic. So after I compress, I'm actually going to come in with this soft rubber tool and make this where my foot meets my the floor of the bottom of my pot, and just compress that to make it a really, really crisp connection point. It's visually really pleasing. I'm also going to do that on the outside. If I've got any clay boogers, I can brush them off with my brush. And boom, I have a nice foot. Another thing to be thinking about is like there's always the potential to accidentally carve through your foot, especially if you left yourself a very small amount of clay when you were throwing the floor. So you can tap, 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 and generally the higher the pitch, the thinner your wall. I can tap, 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 and that pitch sounds pretty solid to me. You can also gently, very gently kind of press, and if it divots, then you know you have a very paper thin wall, and you can kind of push it through, take it off the wheel, push it through, and hope for the best. May or may not survive, but that's part of learning how to trim is understanding the clay density underneath. All right.